Welcome to Sweet Talk. This broadcast is brought to you by the Continuing Education Workforce Training Division of Idaho State University's College of Technology. This podcast is part of our continuing outreach efforts, and the format is conversational. We will be having conversations with businesses, professionals, entrepreneurs, community agencies, and, in all cases, difference makers. Now, let's get started with Sweet Talk. Hello, everyone. This is Jason Batalden. I'm the Assistant Director here at Continuing Education Workforce Training at the College of Technology at ISU, and I want to welcome you to the show. We are excited to get here. We have an exciting guest today on the show, and we already had a wonderful conversation before we hit the record button, so let's hope we got something left to air here. But hey, and those of you that are faithful listeners of the show, that all three of you, one of my mom included, Paul's back on this episode today. So, yes. Paul, you disappeared there for a little bit.
Just for a little bit. I have other responsibilities than this to do.
Yeah. Listen, he's trying to sound tough, but the truth of the matter is that Paul took a vacation day the last time we were recording. So, you just want to say that. Paul, you have to. You're maxed out on your vacation days. You need to take a vacation. You're supposed to.
There's just stuff sitting on your desk when you come back from vacation.
Okay. All right, Caitlin, we'll get to you here in just a second. But before that, we got to say the magic word, and that magic word is welcome. And we know when we say welcome, we start the 20-minute timer. So, Caitlin, you're on the timer, and I didn't even bother to introduce you or tell anyone about you. So that's your first task in the podcast, is let people know who you are.
Awesome. My name is Caitlin Pankow. I teach English at Pokey High School. I'm heading into my 9th year of education, and it's a year that's going to be very different than all the other years that I've ever experienced, right?
Yes.
So it's going to be interesting, but I've got a pretty positive attitude about it. So, that's going for me.
All right. Well, Caitlin, first of all, I got to let you know right up front, in full disclosure, I'm married to an English teacher, high school
nice.
English teacher. So I don't know if you're married or not or whatever, but if you are, I feel bad for your partner, because my wife has been a teacher for 20 some years, and there needs to be a support group for the partners of teachers, because it's a unique category.
Especially the partners of English teachers, because we have a whole load of things to do.
No, and you're always so critical, right? You're just, so anyway. No, that's not true.
So Caitlin, Jason's wife is an English teacher,
mm-hmm.
but our intern, Sammy Rich, who does our blog articles, took the English with Jason's wife back in high school, and she majored in college in English.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
so,
and she now works for me. She works for me writing. And so I always tell Sammy, if she better shape up, or I'll let my wife start editing her work. And so nobody wants that. Caitlin, but we're not here to talk about high school English. So, you know what? You brought up a great point. This is going to be an interesting year.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but Lord knows we can just go on Facebook and have that conversation with about 200 other people. So let's not do that today, okay?
No. Absolutely. And everybody has a different idea of what it should look
Holy
like.
Hannah.
Yeah,
everybody's an expert on COVID right now. I can tell you that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how many days, so are you doing like a blended situation, Caitlin, or what are you doing exactly?
So we're heading into hybrid, and so we're splitting kids A-Day, B-Day schedule. Last names A through K will come on Mondays and Thursdays, and then the rest of the days will be online instruction. And then the L through Z will be Tuesdays and Fridays, and the other days will be online instruction. So it's a little like a college feel, where you're doing homework on your own and you're reading on your own, but when you come into the class, you're ready to discuss, you're ready to write, you're ready to interact. So it'll be definitely new, but I like the feel of, it's kind of called a flipped classroom as well.
Right.
Where kids are doing the work and then they're coming ready to talk.
Yeah, I actually did a video on flipped classrooms quite a few years ago, because I do the video production at the university, and we had this whole thing where we kind of were very excited about the flipped classroom potential.
Yeah.
Now, is this the first time that you've done online teaching? And again, you're kind of forced into it, but did you try that before everything this happened?
No, before the spring happened, I was primarily just the, in-class teacher, but I did the blended where you do have some technology in the classroom where they're writing their essays or they're watching videos and using tech. So that's blended, but I've never been a full online teacher and I've never been a full hybrid teacher either. So brand new adventure for a lot of us.
Right on.
Go ahead, Jason.
Well, Paul, we're going down the wrong
I can
track.
actually bring it back, Jason. I promise I can bring it back.
I was really super curious.
I know, Paul. I know, but
so, with all this talk about like what school's going to look like, a lot of people think I only can focus on COVID or I only can focus on my classroom, and a lot of other things have come up in the world at this moment, right? Where we're talking about, like the Black Lives Matter, and we're talking about inclusion, and we're talking about diversity, and do I have the ability to also focus on that within my classroom while I'm also worried about all these other things? And my screaming answer is yes. Like when things like this come up, we need to focus on all of them. Something can't be pushed aside, especially go ahead.
No, you just, so let's jump into this right away, okay? Because absolutely, right? The diversity and the inclusion are absolutely important.
Mm-hmm.
But in this area of COVID right now and in this world, we've added another obstacle that already puts students who have already obstacles either on economic, social, learning issues, finance, I already mentioned economic. So we have all this gamut, right, of these obstacles that we need to overcome or be aware of or teach through. And now we've added this COVID component.
Mm-hmm.
How do you address that? I mean, how is that being addressed in this classroom, in this new environment?
I think we just have to manipulate it. And so where, like the way that I think about is, what do I have control over now? I have control over the information that I'm giving to my students and the curriculum that I have, regardless if it's being given to them in person or online. And representation matters. So if I need, and I need to continue to focus on, equity and diversity and inclusion, then that curriculum is probably one of the most important things I can focus on for my students to be able to either see themselves or see different perspectives or see different, lives that are represented in our world. And so if we let COVID just kind of stop us in our tracks, I think it would be to a detriment to our students, but we have the ability to still implement this wonderful curriculum or this wonderful equity so that, students are able to gain those new perspectives, I think. And that's a big deal. And making sure that we as educators are going and seeking that out, whether we're talking to other colleagues, right? Or there's training being offered in the district, or videos, TED Talks, like there is so much information out there as to how to apply this into teaching that, we I don't know how to say this, like it's our own fault if we don't try, Well,
I think the easy thing here though is use that word perspective, right? So, let's talk about, COVID hits, at least in our area around March, right? And I guess nationwide, but really that kind of is when it targeted us. And we go to lockdowns and we go to quarantines and all those wonderful things. Well, I think part of the thing that's got me concerned is we use that as an opportunity, we mean collectively, to create our own echo chambers, to create our own silos, because I can keep perspectives or ideas or conflicting ideas or conflicting or different looking, ideas, people, situations, circumstances, I could push them out, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And then all of a sudden I can reinforce what I'm already thinking. That's a fight always.
Yeah, that is a fight always. Absolutely.
Right. And so that, I don't know now, go ahead, Paul, ask me where the question is in that. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm just sitting here listening, man.
No. But that was that idea, perspective. So your challenge is as a teacher, right, is to push through those perspectives.
Right.
And, at Pokey High, you guys, I'm assuming, have the same issues that every high school has across the country.
Yeah.
Economic, social, cultural.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. And I think we can see that, but where the change happens is, first we have to self-reflect, and we've got to be pushed into something that makes us think about how we interact with the world and what is our impact on the world, right? I listened to KISU's Navigating Diversity, and I use those actually in my classroom with my students to talk about that. And in one episode, they talk about standpoint theory and how everything that's happened to me in the past has made me who I am today. And it makes me see or interact with you two differently based on that, right? And both of you are hearing the same words that are coming out of my mouth, but how you interpret them are based on everything that has brought you to this point, right? And so I kind of am going off on a tangent, but I think that's okay. So,
It is.
but working on working on the self is the biggest thing, and you don't know what you don't know. But you're right. We live in an age and an era where we can just push everyone who disagrees with us aside, and we can find only the information that is agreeing with us or that we find palatable. And I think that's the point of education, though, is to, give kids that opportunity to maybe see something or read something or experience something that they haven't before, and then let them process that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Caitlin. And I think in the age of social media, it's just gotten so much worse. It seems like all people seek out on social media is validation to what they've already believe.
Right.
And I think that's why education in school is so important, because it gives you a different perspective. I think, you do English. you must have, do you have reading assignments and so forth? And
Oh, yeah.
I think reading in high school is a way a person develops empathy and also puts themselves into other characters or situations as they read in order to gain more knowledge outside their own.
Yeah, and it challenges their worldview, right? And
That's the word I was looking for.
Okay. So Kaylin, all right. Kaylin, forgive me for this question, but I like being blunt because it's kind of fun, and here's the point. You weren't born with all this insight, or this perspective.
No.
I mean, and I'm assuming maybe your parents taught it, or you learned it in school, or maybe you had any other experiences, interactions that kind of forced this upon you. So I'm going to make an assumption if I'm wrong. If you were in the same room, you could kick me in the shin, but since I guess my shins are safe. What was it? What was it that pushed you out of your self-defined, self-created little world?
I'm a reader, and I've been a reader my entire life, and both my parents read, and they made sure that I had those different, books that the characters were children of color. They were people with different religions. They were from other countries. They were different than me, but I could still connect to them, right? And I could still see myself within them, regardless if we had all these differences, and to respect those differences, because people are different. Oftentimes we hear people say like, oh, I'm colorblind, but when you say that, it really actually means that you don't see them as a full person, right? And so starting young, it was a lot of reading, but just my mom would always say, like, I'm always in to help for justice. Like, I've always been that kid, and I don't know why, I guess it's who I am, but I pursue that information, and I'm not an expert, right? And I continually make mistakes, but I'm in a place right now that I can see my mistakes and go, all right, shouldn't say that. I now know that could be offensive or that could hurt somebody, especially with like microaggressions, right? And then I can reflect on it and change. And I've always been really comfortable with apologizing for the things that I do, and I feel like that really helps my students too. When I make a mistake or I say something that's insensitive, I reflect and I apologize. And it's up to them. They're not too. I hear this a lot. They're not too sensitive, right? If something offends a student or offends another human being, we have to take that as it is and process that we said something that maybe unintentionally hurt that person, but we have to reflect on that. And I think stemming from reading a lot, stemming from my parents giving me, these skills to talk about. I've really, it's been in the last like 2 or 3 years that I really just jumped into like racial and social justice. And I've had some trainings. I'm an IEA member, which is the Idaho Education Association.
Yeah.
I'm the representative for the Human and Civil Rights Committee from Region 5. So I started that in 2016, and I was like, okay, this seems like something that I really want to do. And, I'm getting myself out there. And through that, I've then been trained from the National Education Association in Leaders for Just Schools, which is their national program. And then they made me a facilitator. So I actually get to facilitate and train other teachers on racial and social justice. And I think that, having those opportunities are great, and having those conversations are great. And I've been able to work with teachers from all over the nation, people I would have never met before, because I decided to join the Human and Civil Rights Committee and be vocal. Like there's different words there. There's allies, there's accomplices, there's co-conspirators, right? And we're starting to see this vocabulary to describe people who are fighting for racial and social justice expand, and where we can apply and fit in, because we're all at different places, which is awesome. Like reading a book is super important, but what's the next step? Like putting curriculum in front of my students is really important, but what's the next step? And I learned from that lunch and learn, that it's always an ongoing journey. And I really like that idea. Like, you don't just arrive, like I've arrived, not at all, right? You are continuing the work. And I think that's so cool to be on this journey.
Right.
So did we
go ahead, Paul.
mention that Caitlin had attended a lunch and learn that we gave?
No, of course we didn't, Paul, because that would have taken us, it's because it would mean that we knew what we were doing on the show.
Well, tried to bring it in. I tried to mention it.
Caitlin, welcome to our new host. Caitlin, you do a way better job of this than Paul and I do, I promise you.
So we had a scheduled lunch and learn. Which date was that, Jason? Do you know? That was last month?
That was our, in July. And then our next one's in September 16th.
Okay,
so.
And the guest speaker was Henry Evans from Idaho State University. He's the Department of Diversity, and I've met Henry a couple times. In fact, I just filmed his orientation speech last week. He's a very nice guy, good speaker, and he likes to keep his talks light too.
Right.
He's funny.
Well, and that's, Caitlin, I'm assuming you ran into some advertisement somewhere or knew someone about the Lunch and Learn. And I imagine just the topic, because it was on diversity and inclusion, kind of piqued your interest. And so we want to just take this minute to give a plug that we want to encourage people to listen to shows to check us out on our website and check out Facebook, because we do announce when next one's coming up September 16th, and we'll start advertising that here shortly. But I want to jump off that, and I guess this is why you brought up a term, social justice. Now, that has gotten a negative. That term has been appropriated by, I would say, to mean things that it doesn't mean. Or wait a minute, I guess that's my bias, right? There's evidence of my bias. I would like to think that I'm somewhat understanding of social justice, but the way that term is being used currently is not what the original intent of social justice was years ago. And not to get too on this, but I mean, that term also, it's a doctrine, it's a doctrine. It's a religious doctrine as well. So when you use that term, are you finding people pushing back against that? Are you finding that term in and of itself being an obstacle to the work that you're trying to do?
Sometimes, I guess it depends on the room, and who I'm with.
Well, that's the understatement of sorry, I didn't mean to minimize what you said. But you're right. You're right.
I think you're right, because a lot of these words have become pejorative, and they shouldn't be, right?
Yes. I love English teachers. Pejorative. Yes, we got a great word. Let her finish this talk, though. I want to. I'm sorry, Caitlin. Finish this talk.
It's okay. So I think that's why you see a lot of things called equity and a lot of things called diversity, because people are comfortable with those terms, right? And so when we're comfortable with that, and I don't know, somebody might argue with me, but if calling something diversity training opens the door for me so I can talk about racial and social justice, I'm going to call it diversity.
Okay.
And when it comes to social justice, I can see where, the negative aspect has come to maybe it precedes itself. Right. But there's no justice for anybody if there's no justice for all. Right.
Correct.
Like I didn't say that very eloquently, but I think that's it. So when we can't just talk about race, we can't just talk about gender, we can't just talk about, being able-bodied. It's all intersectional. And I think that's where racial is focusing on the race, but that social is covering all the other isms that exist in the world that need to be talked about. And I think if we try to frame it that way, then maybe it'll have a better understanding or a better way to like accept it for what it is. But I think, I don't know,
well, the quote that I like to use where you said, no justice for all is, if you want peace, work for justice. And without justice, there is no peace.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what, to me, is what that means is, right, is what does peace mean? Well, peace means that with my neighbor, country with country, world, everything from localized peace into our neighborhoods, to expand outside our communities and our states and and in our world and with each other. And I think the message of this social justice message has become extremely important because I think it's evident that we're lacking peace.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean on a society level, on a civil level, but I mean on personal level. I mean addiction rates, divorce rate, or whatever, all the different things that are indicators of stability in our world are falling apart, and COVID has been no help, no ally in any of those things.
Yeah, it's even shined a light on how extreme those divides are, right? Those divides already existed before COVID, but after COVID, it just showed us how greater their impact is, essentially.
Sure. Yep. So. Yeah. Paul, I cut you off earlier. What were you going to say?
What?
Dang it. Don't do that to me, Paul. Don't do that to me, man. And by the way, Paul, our timer went off. And
I heard the timer.
And Kaylin, first of all, I just want to say one thing that's bothering me more than anything else right now. Paul, look on your screen. Do you see what's the matter with my virtual background?
There's nothing matter with your virtual background.
Oh, it's not mirrored? It's not backwards?
No, I see mine as backwards.
That's what it is.
Man. We're mirrored.
All right. Okay.
You're fine, man. You're fine.
All right. Kaylin, we started this. I'm going to look, our faithful, loyal listeners out there. This was supposed to be a discussion about our lunch and learn that we do at Sweet Talk or at Continuing Education Workforce Training.
It might have been, but this was better.
No, that's my point, is this whole conversation was to get on, throw a little plug in, have a very surface level conversation with Caitlin about her experience at the Lunch and Learn. And I think we just went to the deep end of the pool and we went right in. We sunk to the bottom and hung out down there for a little bit and waded through some of the things. And that was a wonderful conversation, Caitlin.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
That was really nice. I do have to ask one tiny question about the Lunch and Learn.
Yes, please.
We do this now through Zoom. How did you enjoy that experience? Was it different? Or are we just so now used to the COVID world that we go, oh yeah.
I think that was it. I've done so many Zoom conferences this summer, for teacher training, that it was just another way to do it. I think we were all maybe a little intimidated to interact with him when he was, talking. So it wasn't so much a conversation as he was hoping. But I think if I were to do another one and it was a conversation, I think I'd feel more comfortable. But his information was awesome. So, and it worked on the Zoom level. So.
Excellent.
Okay, excellent. Good. So, with all that being said, I just want to, let's put out our plug the way it should be.
I got one thing, one other thing. So Caitlin, you mentioned that you do some diversity training or equity training with teachers. Do you just do that at Pocatello High, or do you do it for teachers in your area? And is it something that they contact you for?
Yes, all of the above. So I did a Pokey training last year before COVID hit for about 3 hours, and that was just with Pokey people. And then the student services director has, we worked together, and she contacted me to see if I could offer it to the whole district. And so on Friday, I have an hour and a half, just a little kind of a taste with every teacher in the district, K through 12. And then I will be offering other trainings for the district later in the year, probably via Zoom or Google Meet. And then the other expansion is through the Idaho Education Association or the National Education Association when they ask us to travel.
Have you
Very
ever
cool.
considered community training?
Yes, I have, but I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay,
Very
so you don't have anything that people would contact you for then directly?
Well, I have an email address if they wanted to talk to me, but that's pretty much it.
Okay. All right. You want to give your email address?
Yeah, sure. So this will be my school email. It's pankau, PANKAUCA @sd25.us.
Okay, excellent.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. And if you are interested in learning more about our Lunch and Learns, and the topics do change on a monthly basis, and they're all relevant to workplace environment and workplace and how to work more efficiently, including what we talked about was diversity and equity. It's at ctrain.isu.edu/lunchlearn. And that's ctrain.isu.edu/lunchlearn. And if you want to check us out, you're going to go cetrain@isu.edu. That's cetrain@isu.edu. And Caitlin, I can't tell you how much I appreciated you being on the show. I got to be honest with you, Caitlin. I think I'm going to figure out a way to get you back on and maybe have a little bit more specific conversation about some of these things.
Awesome.
Especially with an English teacher. I want to talk about language and the languages and some of the things we're running into about language. I want and have that conversation where that kind of type. So anyway, Paul, do you got anything you want to throw at Caitlin before we off?
No, I got her contact information so that if people want to reach out, it's been really, I mean, Jason and I were talking before you got on, going, I don't know how this is gonna go. Are we gonna get 20 minutes? And really, we could continue on with this. It was really fun.
Thank you. I really appreciate the time to talk with you both.
Yeah, You're such a great guest. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.